Hello again, everyone. It's Rob Ryder. This would be Saturday, November 19th, 2016. And I'm trying to push through a few videos because I've been doing a number of videos, as you'll see, to do with mortgages and finding the titles to the land and that kind of stuff. And at the same time, gathering all this other information and other things that I dabble in to do with the military and traffic tickets and all sorts of things, and I really want to get that tied together in its own video. But this stuff here just keeps coming, and so hey, I'm not complaining. It's good to have lots to talk about, and that's what I have. And so for today, this particular video is going to be about Fannie Mae and its many hats. And again, it's Saturday, November 19th, 2016. And as you'll see when we start looking at some documents from Fannie Mae, right, this is Fannie Mae speaking again. They are the issuer, master servicer, guarantor, and trustee. That would have been found in the 2016 Single Family Master Trust Agreement. And in that agreement are some recitals. And again, we're going to look at the whole thing, but this is just to get your appetite going. So what are the recitals? Fannie Mae is a corporation organized and existing pursuant to the Charter Act, and has full corporate authority and power to enter into and undertake the obligations set forth in this trust agreement. Well, what do they just agree to be? They got all that power. They agreed to issue, to be the master servicer, to be the guarantor, and to be the trustee. So they're holding legal title as the trustee, and they're the master servicer, so no matter who else is servicing, they're working for Fannie Mae as the master servicer. So at the end of the day, the person servicing your loan is Fannie Mae, because Fannie Mae has purchased and intends to purchase residential mortgage loans. Fannie Mae intends to set aside and transfer residential mortgage loans acquired by it to various trusts established pursuant to this trust agreement and the related issue supplements, and to issue guaranteed mortgage pass-through certificates representing undivided beneficial ownership interest in the assets of the related trust. So I'm going to stop right here and say, if you're in a foreclosure, quit asking to see the fucking note. Tell me you want to see the certificate. It represents undivided beneficial ownership interest in the assets of the related trust. So he who holds the certificate is the owner. Right? They've gone, so what's happened is they've just gone past the note. They converted the note. This is what securitization is. I'll show you the definition that Fannie Mae uses for securitization. It means to convert. And that means to convert from one form to another. So they're going to take the note, set aside, and transfer the residential note. We're going to put that in a box, and instead we're going to issue out a piece of paper that's called a certificate that represents the undivided beneficial ownership interest in the note that's now in the box. You get the drift. Fannie Mae intends to guarantee to each trust sufficient funds to permit timely distributions to holders of principal and interest of certificate or on certificates as required by this agreement. Fannie Mae intends to be the master servicer of the mortgage loans held in each trust and to arrange for and supervise the contractual servicing of mortgage loans by direct servicers. To arrange and supervise the contractual servicing of mortgage loans by direct servicers. Now, in all of this, we'll just see when we look at a note, on there it has a pay to the order of line that hasn't been filled in. And if you were to fill that name in and put your name on it, you could say, hey, this is pay on demand. You need to pay me. And get Fannie Mae to get you paid. And so actually, that's what we're trying right now. We've taken something to Fannie Mae, see what they'll do with it. And some things have happened since that happened, and I'm going to save that for Bobby Kirby to talk about on a separate video that will just talk about what he's done specifically. This is like a generality of, hey, we tried this because of what these things say, and, well, nobody's gotten it back yet. It makes sense to bring these things up in court. And, hey, we'll try it for a couple of days. We'll see what next week brings. We'll see what they tell Bob next week. Okay, so, because Fannie Mae intends to be the trustee for each trust. Well, what does that mean to the beneficiary? It means if you have the beneficial interest, you have to go to the trustee of the trust that you have the beneficial interest of. And it isn't Mears. And it's not some bank that they tell you to go see. It's frickin' Fannie Mae. They intend to be the trustee of each trust. Don't argue with it. Show them their own writing. Yeah. And as always, until this pops, brother, I need you to donate. Man, we're getting lots of great information, but I need some more time. And to do that, I got to eat and pay my rent. So please, by PayPal, if you can, to ashleyretluski@gmail.com. You could mail it to me at Robert Retluski, 10955 14 Mile Road Northeast, Rockford, Michigan. If you wanted to use a credit card, you could email me and say, hey, I got a credit card. How can I help you out? And if you just have questions, brother, just call me, write me. You don't have to pay to ask a question. That isn't what this is about. This is about if you could help, I could use it. Because I'm doing all I can, and this is all I want to do until it's figured out, and I would never want to do it again. Amen, Jesus. Okay, so let's see. How would you find out if Fannie Mae is involved in your loan somehow? Well, so this document we're looking at here, this is what Bob got when he asked his servicer for the information they had in their files for him, and this is part of what they sent him, and it says paid in full. Now, Bob did sell his property 2012 or 13, could be. Maybe that's when it got paid in full, but there's no date on here that says why this note was paid in full. All it does say is it's paid in full. That's good enough for me. Hey, this is paid. If you pay back the mortgage, then the securities are supposed to return to you. That's what a security is for. You're putting up collateral until the mortgage is paid. Right? Well, once they say it's paid in full, that whatever was put up as collateral, as a security, is supposed to come back to the owner, which is you. And that's all those payments you were making. If you look at when you read the paperwork, you're doing it as a security. On the deed of trust, all those payments you make. But this is the note, right? On this note, at the bottom of the first page, it says multi-state fixed adjustable rate note, single family, Fannie Mae, uniform instrument. So it doesn't matter who the banks were that you were dealing with. This is a Fannie Mae instrument, right? They're just working for Fannie Mae. And, right, so chances are it's Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Those were the two that seemed to apparently buy most of the mortgages. But, I'm going to let Fannie Mae tell you. So let's see what Fannie Mae had to say. First 30 pages, okay. So all this stuff is easy to find online, right? You just put in Fannie Mae single family MBS prospectus, and you could find this on Google in no time, and you could have your own copy. Guaranteed mortgage pass-through certificates. This is going to explain what Fannie Mae said they're going to do and see, right? They're going to issue these certificates. Well, that's handy information to have. So what are they? The certificates. We, the Federal National Mortgage Association, or Fannie Mae, will issue the guaranteed mortgage pass-through certificates. So who's going to issue them? Fannie Mae. The issuance of certificates will have its own identification number and will represent beneficial ownership interest in a distinct pool of residential mortgage loans that are secured by single-family dwellings, or in a pool of participation interest in loans of that type. The mortgage loans or participation interests are held in trust created under a trust agreement. We'll be looking at one of those. But this says that so each issuance of certificates will have its own identification number. So they have a serial number. Each certificate has a serial number that's going to represent the beneficial ownership in a distinct pool of residential mortgage loans. And so in that distinct pool, right, so that's what one REMIC is, or one of these mortgage-backed securities that has who knows how many different mortgage loans in it. But whatever one has yours, there is a certificate with a number that identifies it and tying it to your specific loan. And that's the one we're looking for. You want to see the certificate that has its own identification number that represents beneficial ownership interest in a distinct pool of residential mortgage loans. Ask for that next time you're in court. But actually, that's what you could do. What we're going to do is just go to Fannie Mae and say, hey, we want to be paid. These are simple investment contracts, we're the beneficial owner. We're going to sign a piece of paper and ask to get paid. And so one of the things that Bob did, right? So, and so all these things I'm showing, if you came to this video first, or somebody told you, hey, you got to go watch this video. If you were to go to my site name for YouTube, Rob Ryder, ROBBBRYDER, Adventures in Paper Chasing and Loan Servicer and Paper Pusher are really talking about the ideas we're talking about right now that have led to going and looking at these documents. So, but in this loan servicer is where we're looking at the documents that Bob got from his servicer, and this is one of them. We got like 48 sheets of paper. And so at the end of his note, they had the endorsement that we've talked about in prior videos. They were on there. But they deleted them. His were deleted. But pay to the order of. And if you were to, I think I showed on my last, not my last video, but the last one having to do with this, the one in between, this has to do with the survey and the land title, right? But right now we're talking about the dollars, which are the ones before that. But you can find where Fannie Mae says this is what's supposed to be on there. Pay to the order of, the name of the bank that needs to pay to the order of, their address, without recourse, a place for a signature of an officer of the bank, and their title. So if you were to put your name behind pay to the order of, if this hadn't been deleted, you could say, hey, I want to be paid. It's been endorsed. It's like somebody giving a check where the pay to the order of line is empty. If they can hand you a check that way, you can give it to anybody, they can write their name in it and go get paid. That's what they created by doing that. And that should be payable on demand. And so if they don't want to pay, hey, let's go talk to the trustee. That was the concept, right? Okay, and then we're going to see where they talk about this signature name affidavit as we go on. That shows who the borrower is, what the loan number is. There's a signature. Here's a signature they created for him and said that it was him, and that this signature are one and the same person. So this signature and this signature are one and the same person. And somebody swore to it. This Amy, whoever. So apparently they've been using his signature in that format to say, hey, that's the same as if the real man had signed in this name. But who's ever using this is doing it in the name of Robert Bradford Kirby. So anyways, they had canceled Bob's, but they added this thing called an allonge to note. And now since doing the video, they've actually sent Bob the originals of all these, and that's a blue ink signature on the original that he has. Well, Bob took this and signed without recourse, paid the order of, and put his name and sent it to Fannie Mae. We just found an email address. I think it was the ethics office. Hey, let's send it to ethics. Or say, look, we want to be paid. We're having a hard time getting paid. Boom. That's where it is today. That was just on Thursday, and they've tried to call him, and he missed the call. That's just the way life is, right? And he called back, and the person was in a meeting. We'll just pick it up on Monday. But that's what we did. Bob signed this piece of paper and frickin' sent it to Fannie Mae. And as we'll see by reading what they say, that could be the right thing to do. Let's continue on. So I'm not going to read all this stuff, obviously. I would be here for much longer than you or I have time for. I just highlighted some things as I went through. In this one, it gives a summary. This summary highlights information contained elsewhere in this prospectus. As a summary, it speaks in general terms without giving details, discussing any exceptions. Outstanding. Give me the Reader's Digest version. Keep all the bullshit out of the way. Just tell me what's going on. I want to know what the procedure is. And so, what do we need to know? What is a security? First of all, it's a guaranteed mortgage pass-through certificate. That's what the security is. The security is the certificate. issuer and guarantor. That would be Fannie Mae. That gives her principal office. And then, hey, note, Fannie Mae has been under conservatorship since 2008. The conservator. The Federal Housing Finance Agency succeeded to all rights, titles, and powers and privileges of Fannie Mae. So by going to Fannie Mae, they could say, well, we really don't have that power anymore, so we can't help you. So we may end up going to the Federal Housing Finance Agency. I'm pointing out what Fannie Mae said. The certificates and payments of principal and interest of the certificates are not guaranteed by the United States and do not constitute a debt or obligation of the United States or any of its agencies and instrumentalities other than Fannie Mae, the sponsor and depositor. We are the sponsor of each issuance of certificates and the depositor of the mortgage loans into each trust. And that depositor, that came up on something else, and I have to remember what it goes to, but I'm just saying, here's some hats they're wearing, right? This is Fannie Mae speaking. We're going to wear the sponsor and the depositor hat. Description of certificates. Each certificate will represent pro rata undivided beneficial ownership interest in a pool of mortgage loans. We will issue the certificates in book entry form on the book entry system of the U.S. Federal Reserve Banks, period. Right? There is no paper certificates anymore. Now, they just wrote this in 2016, and these are all, I'll find it. Well, I'll go find it right now. You probably want to find it. So, Fannie Mae Master Trust Agreement. It's on the Fannie Mae website because they have different, depending on the age of your loan, right? They fall into different categories of agreements. And technically, or I would say, they probably about say the same, but there is a chance that you have, all right, so MBS trust agreements. Fannie Mae MBS trust agreements. Google it. You'll be here. You can go down and find the age. Here's the one we're looking at. Here's one from 2009. They had a couple different ones, amendments, because, hey, Fannie Mae went, not quite bankrupt, but pretty damn close. And it goes back in time with all sorts of things to read. So, but today they just issue book entry form, and they go to the U.S. Federal Reserve. That is as it turns out, is the paying agent and the fiscal agent for Fannie Mae in these transactions. Issue date, settlement date, distribution date, maturity date, use of proceeds. We'll usually issue certificates in exchange for mortgage loans in the pool backing the certificates. We usually issue certificates in exchange for the loans in the pool backing the certificates. So each loan in the pool gets a certificate issued that has its own number. And so again, if you had to go to court on Monday for foreclosure, you start demanding that somebody produce the certificate and forget the frickin' note. Download this and give it to the judge. Say, hey, read the summary, judge. Principal. I haven't read hardly any of this, right? I'm looking for the parts. I'm just trying to get paid, right? I'll figure the rest out later. Who do I need to bitch to ask for a check? Right? And just pointing out that, hey, I'm not myself, but whoever it is the owner. Just say that you are and make him call you a liar. And if I'm not a liar, then give me the advocate for where's the customer advocate and get me a remedy. Our guarantee runs directly to the trust and not directly to the certificate holders. Oh, see, because we're not holding the certificates, right? And because these are like bearer bonds, he who holds the title is the owner. Who is ever holding the certificate gets to act like the owner. But the guarantee goes to the trust, and the trust goes to the trustor, the trustee, and the beneficiary. And we're going as the beneficiary, and that is who the guarantee is to, not the person holding the certificate. Certificate holders have limited rights to bring proceedings directly against us to enforce our guarantee. See what that is. But that isn't us. We're going to the trust because that's where the guarantee runs. They're the trustee. You are both the trustor, and you're going to be the beneficiary. Under certain circumstances, certificate holders have certain limited rights, blah, 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 because these certificates haven't been issued in your name, as we'll see. Right, they're issued in a street name. And I think, so as an example, this isn't the one that has it. They had taken one of Bob's pieces of paper that talked about the title transmittal, and they had circled the loan number and then written in next to it a PHH, which is the mortgage company, with some more numbers behind it. It's like, well, that could be the street name and number that this loan is under in this certificate system. That's where all the assets are being held by the Federal Reserve Bank, because they're using this paperless system. And then it goes on to say that so does Treasury Direct, and I'm really thinking that somehow you can get your Treasury Direct account to be what's funded, because that's supposed to be your investor's account. So, you're not investing now, you're going to uninvest. Well, that's still part of the thing. You want to settle the account. Well, you do that as an investor, and so somehow this may end up coming out, when it's all said and done, by being paid through this thing called the Treasury Direct account. Because a stockbroker told Bob that if you get your certificate, right, they're not going to give you a check. They're going to open an account and give you a checkbook. Well, that's what a Treasury Direct account would be. And then they take this, whatever these proceeds are, and they invest it into securities. So all these Treasury bonds and all the shit that's been bought is ours. We own it. It's our savings account. We're going to somehow tap into it. That, in my head, that's where this all leads. At the end of the day, that's where your value comes from, and you're going to access it with your Treasury Direct card that people believe they can anyways, and so we're just going to try to put it together. Well, it'll be an interesting couple weeks. In the meantime, hey, let's just get paid on one of them. Master servicing. We are responsible as a master servicer. Excellent. Trust documents. Each issuance of certificates is issued pursuant to some trust document. Trustee. We serve as the trustee. Paying agent. An entity designated by us to perform the functions of the paying agent. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York currently serves as our paying agents for the certificates. You want to get paid on the certificate, it goes through the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The fiscal agent. An entity designated by us to perform certain administrative functions for our trust. The Federal Reserve Bank in New York currently serves as our fiscal agent for the certificates. So it's like you go to one window and, they look at your paperwork and they put the stamp on it and say, go to the pay window. I saw that in an old video or old movies one time. You go to one window to get something stamped and you take it to the other window to get paid. That's how the banks used to work. At least the old movie I saw, that's how it worked. Mortgage loans. We acquire mortgage loans from mortgage loan sellers that we have approved. Right? So who's the seller? Well, that's the person that's originating your loan. Right? They didn't really lend you any money. They originated the paperwork, but they didn't lend you any money. They didn't sign the deed of trust. In fact, I'll show you. Let's go look at Bob's deed of trust. Did I go to the last page? I don't know if he sent it. No, this is the note. Forgive me. I don't have the deed of trust on here. If you were to look at your deed of trust, you'll see that you're the only one to sign the deed of trust. So you didn't have a... And they didn't sign. You could go back further and find your loan application. The bank never signed it. So you never had an agreement. Termination. A trust can be terminated, blah, blah, blah. But we do not have a unilateral option to cause any early termination of the trust. They don't have unilateral, but they could have bilateral. You could come to a mutual agreement as the beneficiary that I would like you to terminate the trust early. I'll just take it if that's available. right? Then I'll take it now. Tax consequences. Each mortgage pool will be classified in fixed investment as a, okay, each mortgage pool will be classified as a fixed investment trust. What is this? It's a fixed investment trust. Whatever that term of finance means is what this is. It's a fixed investment trust. It's probably a common law term of some kind, or directly out of the UCC or something like that. Each beneficial owner of a certificate will be treated as the owner of a pro rata rate of undivided interest in each mortgage loan included in that pool. Accordingly, each owner will be required to include in income its pro rata share of the entire income from each mortgage loan in the pool. In general, will be entitled to deduct its share of expenses of the trust, subject to limitations described in this prospectus. Blah 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 blah. Well, one of the duties of the fiscal agent, which is also the paying agent, which was the Federal Reserve, as the fiscal agent, is to collect the tax. So they could collect the tax from the account and then pay you the proceeds. Right? There's really nothing else we need to do except get them to say, yeah, you're right, here's your proceeds. And everything else will be taken care of behind the curtain. Legal investment considerations, securities issued or guaranteed by Federal National Mortgage Association. And what was it that... Fannie Mae is a government-sponsored enterprise that was chartered by Congress in 1938 to support liquidity, stability, and affordability in the secondary mortgage market, where existing mortgage-backed assets are purchased and sold. A charter act does not permit us to originate loans and lend money directly to consumers in a primary mortgage market. Our most significant activities are securitizing mortgage loans originated by lenders into Fannie Mae mortgage-backed securities. So what did they do? They just converted a mortgage loan originated by the lender into another piece of paper called a certificate. It's a mortgage-backed security, and purchasing mortgage loans and mortgage-backed securities for our mortgage portfolio. Fannie Mae has been securitizing, converting mortgage loans since 1981, and has issued over $8.3 trillion. Go figure. Regulation and conservatorship. FHFA is an independent agency of the federal government with general supervisory and regulatory authority over Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the 12 federal home loan banks. I didn't know we had 12 federal home loan banks. That's interesting. That almost sounds like the Federal Reserve. We got 12 of those. I wonder if that's what they're talking about. Okay, so I don't know there's much more. In general, the certificates represent fractional undivided beneficial ownership interest in a distinct pool of single-family mortgage loans. So you got a particular REMIC that you're involved in, and in there is a certain number of mortgage loans, and each one of those mortgage loans has a numbered certificate that was issued that's tied to that loan. And that certificate is the determining factor of who has beneficial interest. And so you really want to see it. And you really want to just say, hey, that's mine. We're going to just say it's mine. But when we do get to see one eventually, I think we'll see that that it has our name on it. So issuance in book entry form, because this is what they're doing now. So we will issue the certificate in book entry form using the book entry system of the U.S. Federal Reserve banks. Book entry certificates must be issued in a minimum denomination of 1,000 with additional increments of $1. They are freely transferable on the records of the Federal Reserve Bank, but are not convertible to physical certificates. Any transfers are subject to a minimum denomination requirements. The certificate holder is an entity that appears in the records of the Federal Reserve Bank as the owner of the certificate. A certificate holder is an entity that appears in the records of the Federal Reserve Bank as the owner of the certificate. PHH Mortgage. Whatever, some street name, the broker's name. Only entities that are eligible to maintain book entry accounts with the Federal Reserve Bank may be certificate holders. Right? So if you can't do it, you can't be the certificate holder. These entities are not necessarily the beneficial owners of the certificates. No, we are. Somebody has our certificate, they're holding it, but we're the beneficial owner. If a certificate holder is not also the beneficial owner of the certificate holder and all other financial intermediaries in the chain between the certificate holder, the bastard that has your piece of paper, and the beneficial owner, that would be you, are responsible for establishing and maintaining accounts for their customers. So somebody's got an account set up with your name on it, with your proceeds in it. They're administering it and taking the administration fee. But you never getting access to the benefit of the corpus of the trust. So we're going to go claim it. A beneficial owner or an investor is anyone who acquires a beneficial ownership interest in the certificates. Well, how do you know if you have one? You just tell them you do. Make them say you're a liar. As an investor, you will not receive a physical certificate. Instead, your interest will be recorded on the records of the brokerage firm, bank, thrift institution, or other financial intermediary that maintains an account for you. And I believe that is your Treasury Direct account tied to your Social Security number. Because the Treasury fits all these. They're a brokerage firm. Fuck, they sell treasuries. Bank, thrift institution, or other financial intermediary that maintains an account for you. Right? As the investor, the beneficial owner, they're talking about us. Our account's going to be through our Treasury Direct account. I do believe. Because they're not your commercial bank, they're an intermediary, right? To open a Treasury Direct account, you have to have a bank account, right? So that's where the payment's going to come out, but the intermediary would be the Treasury. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York currently serves as our fiscal agent pursuant to physical agency agreement. In that capacity, it performs certain administrative functions for us with respect to certificate holders. So they're going to deal with the certificate holder, which is the dude that now has your certificate that we want to say, hey, that's ours. Please convert it to Federal Reserve notes and pay it into my account. Well, so who's ever got the certificate is going to have to deal with the Federal Reserve. Neither we nor the Federal Reserve Bank will have any direct obligation to the beneficial owner of a certificate who is not also a certificate holder. We and the Federal Reserve Bank may treat the certificate holder as the absolute owner of the certificate for all purposes, regardless of any contrary notice you may provide. Well, that's pretty fucked up, right? But hey, they're saying they don't have to, but it don't mean they won't, right? So it's just best to ask. Neither we nor the Federal Reserve Bank will have any direct obligation to the beneficial owner of a certificate who is not also a certificate holder. We and the Federal Reserve Bank may treat the certificate holder as the absolute owner of the certificate for all purposes, regardless of any contrary notice you may provide, because he who holds the title is the owner. That's common law. Certificate holder has the title, he's the owner. They could just leave it that way. But the Treasury or the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is actually the one collecting the tax, and anybody who's collecting the tax is the Court of Exchequer. And the Court of Exchequer, or is in the Court of Exchequer, or the Court of Exchequer is associated with those that collect the king's revenue, right? And they've said, or I don't know if I read it yet or read it earlier, I'm going to read it again, the Federal Reserve, they're collecting the tax, the business tax. So that could make them the Court of Equity, which is the Court of Exchequer which had to do with the king's revenue, and this is in Blackstone's Commentaries, Book 3, Chapter 24, 5, something like that, 6, Courts of Equity. And just read about the Court of Exchequer, because there's numerous courts of equity, but they have jurisdiction in certain things, and only one has anything to do with the king's revenue, and that's the court you're supposed to go to get a remedy when somebody commits a fraud against you, which would be them saying, hey, because somebody has the certificate, it's theirs, when the certificate has your name on it. Right? Well, that's why you go to the Court of Equity, to get them to subpoena the certificate holder and say, tell us why we shouldn't throw your ass in prison for the rest of your life for not giving this man a certificate, or come to an agreement. So, okay, that's simple. Federal Reserve Bank in New York also currently serves as our paying agent. So, they're the fiscal agent. They're going to collect the tax, and they're doing that for the United States, right? Not for Fannie Mae. They're the fiscal agent for the United States. And that's beautiful. Okay, I think that's really all I had for this one. I want to make sure I got, yeah. Okay, and then just a few things out of a couple other ones. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but these are all available from Fannie Mae. Basics of Fannie Mae Single Family MBS. I just want to show you this one to show. I've already pointed it out on enough times, but one more time never hurts. Lenders submit groups of similar mortgage loans to Fannie Mae for securitization. Fannie Mae ensures that the loan it acquires generally meets the credit quality guidelines, and then it securitizes the pool of mortgages. The loans are converted or securitized into more liquid, flexible instruments. Well, they're converted, and if you go look at the word conversion in common law, that's a freaking crime. It's an unlawful conversion. I mean, the word conversion has and that's why they don't use the word conversion, because it's like, wow, that's unlawful. So they securitized it and gave it a definition. We're going to convert it or securitize it, but we're not going to say it's a conversion. All right. So what does the wording, the meaning of words mean? Yes. Man, what happened here? I want to read this one. Okay, so let's look at the 2016 master mortgage. (2016) Single Family Master Trust Agreement, right? Federal National Mortgage Association, Fannie Mae, as they get top billing, issuer, master servicer, guarantor, and trustee. And if you're the beneficiary of a trust, you have to go see the trustee for guaranteed mortgage pass-through certificates that we have a beneficial interest in. And so you can, 2016 Single Family Master. I showed you how to get to that. Just Google it, and you can have your own copy. Make sure I'll go look at miscellaneous. So here's the recitals that I read at the beginning. Not too much time for that. We'll just look at some definitions. Book entry rules, provisions in effect from time to time, currently contained in Title 12, Part 1249. Right, so if you want to know how book entry works, there's where you'd find out. Books and records. As to any trust, the records as determined by the trustee used to account for the activity of mortgage loans. So actually, let's ask the trustee where the books and records are for our account. And you give them, you don't have, I don't think you have to have this other stuff necessarily. But if you had a copy of your note, you give them a copy of your note or a copy of your deed of trust. Right? But this is the thing that they took and they converted this into a certificate. And this number here is actually the loan number, and it could just be that simple, that the loan number is the number that's on the frickin' certificate. I mean, this don't have to be rocket science. They just use the loan number. But I don't know. I haven't seen a certificate yet. Let's go find one. I wanted to. Yeah. Let's go look at this other one real quick before I get into these definitions. To go see what a certificate looks like, I think it shows in this one here. I know one of them I look at, they were showing examples of what certificates look like, so, yeah, well, maybe some other time. Certificate, a guaranteed mortgage pass-through certificate issued pursuant to this trust agreement and the related issue supplement representing an undivided beneficial interest in the related trust fund. Certificate account, any account or accounts created and maintained pursuant to Section 7.2, which may hold funds of one or more trust or other Fannie Mae trust. Slow down a little bit. Certificate distribution amount, certificate interest distribution amount, certificate principal balance, certificate principal distribution amount. You can find out all sorts of things by reading this. The Charter Act. Well, this will tell you what created them, and that will tell you what their duties are. You know, who their oversight is in case, well, now we know who it is. They're under conservatorship. But, you know, I don't think we need to go that deep. I'm just saying, if you want to know how they were formed, Title 12, 1716 will tell you. Custodial account, any account or accounts created and maintained pursuant to Section 6.1. And Code, Internal Revenue Code 1986, which reminds me, we're not going to look at it now, but in reading these things, if you had watched some earlier videos I did talking about the EAs, the enrolled agents that are credentialed by the Internal Revenue Service, it's the highest credential the Internal Revenue offers, is to be considered an EA. So they're actually federal officers that are working for a fee. They're not working for a wage, right? They work for a fee. And they are supposed to follow this thing called the Treasury Circular 230. So Treasury Circular 230, if you Google that, you would 230 would find this thing, and it's mentioned in this in these papers to do with Fannie Mae and so forth. But I just don't think it's this one. But I do want to point it out that there's a tie-in between all this shit with Fannie Mae and the enrolled agents, because that's the one that this thing with 230, Treasury Circular 230 has to do with. So that maybe they're the ones we can go to get the last thing done that needs to be done. I don't know. It just was interesting that they would mention it. It's, you know, only place I've ever seen it mentioned before, other than the place I read it the first time. Electronic Note Registry System, a system recording the existence and ownership of mortgage note that is signed electronically. A system of recording the existence and ownership of a mortgage note that is signed electronically. Well, they must have a system of recording the existence and ownership of a note that was signed manually, too. Eligible investment. Things they can invest in, because they're going to take these certificates then and act like they're money. Book entry value. Fannie Mae, a body corporate, existing under laws in the United States. Fannie Mae website. Yep. The reason that's important is when we get to contacting Fannie Mae, one of the ways you can do it is electronically. And so if you sent something to their website and it gave your response back that it received it, that would be considered notice. Fiscal agent. A person designated by the issuer to perform functions of a fiscal agent of the trust documents. Currently, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Mortgage loan, a government mortgage loan. is insured or guaranteed in whole or in part by an agency or department of the government, so forth and so on. So I don't know if government loans are under here, but whatever Fannie Mae buys, that's what we're talking about. So guarantor, I'd be Fannie Mae. Interest-only mortgage loans, issuer Fannie Mae in its capacity. Who's the issuer? Fannie Mae in its capacity as sponsor of each issuance of certificates and settler of each of the trusts. See, they're the frickin' settler, man. It's like, hey, settle the trust. Or any successor or assign that assume the responsibility specified the capacity in the trust documents. So Fannie Mae is the issuer and the settler. Mortgage, deed of trust, deed to secure debt, security agreement, security instrument, any other instrument creating a lien or encumbrance on mortgage property, securing a mortgage note. Mortgage registrations or registry system, recording beneficial ownership, a system of recording beneficial ownership, identity of the servicer, and transfers of mortgage is electronically, that is acceptable to the master servicer, and that would be Fannie Mae, which may include the system operated by the mortgage electronic registration system, a corporation organized and existing under the laws of Delaware, or any successor. So I wouldn't ask for mirrors, right? They make it specifically, they spelled out the word mortgage electronic registration system, comma, incorporated, has a system that records beneficial ownership and identifies the servicer and transfers of mortgages and so forth and so on. And so that system is something that subscribers can access. It's not the MERS that has the loan. It's not the MERS that's the mortgagee of record in the county land record. This is the registration system. That's the system that people who have access to can access to see who the owner is. It's the other MERS. There's two MERS. There's one that's actually the one acting like the, what do they call it? The mortgagee of record, right? That's what they call themselves, the mortgagee of record in the county land records. Not them, the other one. The one that has the registration system that shows who the real owner is, who has beneficial ownership. And so I would have to think, well, Fannie Mae has to have access to that. Your servicer must have access to it. And so we just need to ask a smart question and point out exactly what it is that, let me look that up real quick. I'm talking about this right here. Mortgage. This one, I'm believing. No, not mortgage servicer. Electronic Servicer Inc. MERS is an American privately held corporation. Okay, I'm going to have to spend more time on it. Anyways, I'm still going to go to Fannie Mae. We're already talking to Fannie Mae. I'm talking about things that may not even need to be talked about after next week, because they could just say, hey, yeah, we are the trustee, and you came to the right door. The paying agent, we've already talked, right? But doesn't enable the trustee to serve in that capacity with respect to certificates of one or more trusts. So we want the trustee to call the paying agent and say, let's want to cash this one out. Yada, yada, yada. Trust, a fixed investment trust created pursuant to some documents. The trustee, Fannie Mae, in its capacity as trustee, is successor or its successors or assigns, which have the responsibility specified for this capacity in the trust documents. Here's one I love. United States. The United States of America. Amen. Just the way it is in the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union. Very first article, the style of the Confederacy shall be. in quotes, the United States of America. Not United States of America. The needs to be capitalized to be part of the frickin' name. That's the legal name of the Confederation of States that were created under the Articles of Confederation. United States of America is a kingdom of King George III's successors, as can be seen in the Treaty of Paris of 1783, I do believe. The first paragraph, where the king is actually Prince George, he calls himself there, is laying claim to all these different things, and one of them is the Kingdom of United States of America, but not the United States of America. Written statements. Every request, order, demand, appointment, notice, statement, certificate, consent, direction, or similar action by any party will be in writing, which includes an electronic transmission of a writing or posting in an electronic medium, including the Fannie Mae website as provided in Section 15.4. You got to put it in writing for anything to do with what we're doing. So we're putting them on notice we want to be paid. Or actually, we're ordering them. Take your pick. Notice you've been ordered. Individual trust, referring only to certificates of that trust and holders of those certificates. Direct servicing. With respect to each direct servicer, and unless expressly stated otherwise, the provisions of the trust documents will be interpreted as referring only to the mortgage loan serviced by the direct servicer. The term custodial account will be construed to mean accounts pertaining to only the mortgage loans serviced by the direct servicer. With respect to each mortgage loan, unless expressly stated otherwise, reference to the direct servicer will mean the particular direct servicer, and any subservicer engaged by the direct servicer is then servicing the mortgage loan. Man, they make it freaking difficult to know who you're supposed to talk to. But the direct servicer is the person that originated your loan. So in Bob's case, it was Merrill Lynch. Then Merrill Lynch gets this place called PHH Mortgage involved and makes them Merrill Lynch's servicer. So you're going to the servicer of the servicer, where you should be going just to the direct servicer, which would be Merrill Lynch, instead of going to PHH Mortgage, which is acting as a trustee or in a capacity for some kind of capacity as a servicer for Merrill Lynch, but not necessarily for you. Your deal's with the master servicer. He's the one that's on the paperwork. And so that's why, okay, well then the master or the direct servicer is working under an agreement with the master servicer, which is Fannie Mae. So just take it to the top and shit rolls downhill. Creation of trust, conveyance of loans, purchase of loans. So there's all, you could read this stuff for days. So much to read, and I'm going to go back and read it closer, but that wasn't the meaning of this video. Issuance of certificates. The issuance of certificates pursuant to related trust documents will occur upon the date of initial settlement and transfer of consideration for such certificate and will constitute a sale, assign, transfer, and conveyance to a holder of an undivided beneficial interest in the related trust fund, effective as of the related issue date. My, oh my, oh my. All I know is when are they going to issue them? Will occur upon a date of initial settlement and transfer of consideration for such certificate. Well, that should be when they take the mortgage note in one hand and hand a certificate with the other hand. Interest held, distribution of the pool. Boop, 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 boop. We have here custody of mortgage documents. 3.4. Documents delivered to trustee or custodian in connection with any transfer of a mortgage loan into a trust subject to paragraph D of subsection 3.4.1. 3.4.1. The following documents, if applicable to that mortgage loan, will be delivered electronically or otherwise to the trustee or a custodian. The original mortgage note or any or other instrument evidencing the borrower's indebtedness endorsed in blank as to the issuer or the trustee. Endorsed in blank or to the issuer or the trustee, and, if applicable, the original, or if the original is unavailable, a copy of any document that modify the terms and conditions of the mortgage note. It'd be like some kind of adjustable rate mortgage or something, I guess. Participation, other mortgage documents subject to some section will be held by the direct servicer, if applicable, for a mortgage loan will be held by the direct servicer or upon request by the master servicer or a trustee will be delivered to the trustee or a custodian. In either case, in a file that is clearly identified by electronic or other means being held for the benefit of the trustee. And so what's in that file? The original or copy of applicable power of attorney, if power in fact assigned the mortgage note on behalf of the borrower. The original or copy of a name affidavit. Hey, we saw one of those for Bobby. The original or copy of the mortgage with respect to cooperative share loan, blah, 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 blah. So these are all things, that there's a file for someplace. The certificates issued with respect to each trust will consist of only one class of certificates designated generally as guaranteed mortgage pass-through certificates with an additional designation specified in the related issue supplement. Book entry form, definitive form, denominations, transfer, exchange, and pledge. Master servicer responsibilities. The master servicer, this is Fannie Mae, will supervise, monitor, and oversee the obligation of the direct servicer to service and administer the applicable mortgage loans in accordance with acceptable servicing practices. See, that must be a book or some kind of manual. Hey, where is your manual on acceptable servicing practices? And will have full power and authority to do any and all which it may deem necessary or appropriate, and its role, discretion in connection with such master servicing and administration in a manner consistent with acceptable servicing practices. I wonder if they got involved, Bob. I'm sure we'll be talking about it. Some things happen that seem like it might have something to do with a master servicer. Mortgage files. Release, satisfaction, reconveyance. Upon the payment in full of any mortgage loan, and remember, Bob's paperwork says it's freaking paid in full. Paid in full. Fixed rate mortgage. Here, I show that along, right? Paid in full. Fixed adjustable rate mortgage. Fannie Mae uniform instrument, and so paid in full, so the borrower paid $136,000. No matter what anybody says. So what about that? Upon the payment in full of any mortgage loan, the direct servicer will be responsible for processing the reconveyance, satisfaction, or release appropriate in the applicable jurisdiction or in the applicable mortgage registry system and any related documentation in accordance with acceptable servicing practices, including releasing the lien within the time as required by applicable law. And so, as we've had found out, this is one of those wonderful finds, at the PHH Mortgage Servicer for Bob, they had a loan release office. Well, but PHH Mortgage isn't the direct servicer. The direct servicer is actually whoever they were. Can't remember their name now. Anyways, they're the ones that we'd go to. Because this is talking about the direct servicer. It didn't say about the servicer of the direct servicer. It says the direct servicer is responsible for processing So you're going to go to the loan release department of the direct servicer, and the direct servicer would be the person that's on your deed of trust as the what would they have them down there as? I think as the original. They would be the lender. I'm almost positive. Yeah, well, I have to, they're somewhere on your deed of trust. I just can't remember what all the conditions are, or the players. Okay, certificate accounts. Yeah, there's one more thing that's certainly worth noting. Section 15, this is miscellaneous. Excuse me. No holder will have any right to control or to participate in the control or administration of any trust or related trust fund, nor will any of the terms of the trust documents be construed to constitute the holders in Fannie Mae as partners or members in an association, nor will any holder have any duty or liability to any third person by reason of any action taken in the duties of the trust documents pursuant to provisions of the trust documents and servicing contracts. Okay, so, if you do the right thing, according to this, that's when the banks really aren't each other's friends, that Fannie Mae is just going to do the right thing. You put the right input in, they're going to, they're going to push the button, and out comes your check based on all this paperwork that's already been put in. Governing law, the terms of the trust documents will be construed in accordance with laws of the District of Columbia without giving effect to the conflict of laws principle. Now, I didn't say Washington, I said District of Columbia. In the District of Columbia, I believe, is the federal jurisdiction, and so by federal law, in accordance with the laws of District, will also be the laws of the United States. Unless the District of Columbia has its own local code, but it wouldn't be the code for Washington, D.C. It would be the code for District of Columbia. Washington, D.C. is a city inside of the District of Columbia. Washington is a city within the District of Columbia. So saying Washington, D.C. like saying Oakfield, Michigan. One's the city inside, the other one's the state. So, okay. Demands, notices, and communications. All formal demands, notices, and communications by and between the issuer, grantor, or guarantor, master servicer, or trustee, and any holder will be in writing, which may include an electronic message communication over the internet or other technological method that becomes available for the transfer of information, and delivery in person or by first-class mail, postage prepaid, or facsimile, or electronic transmission, which transmission will be deemed received only upon telephonic or electronic confirmation of receipt, such as we've forwarded your request. And I think that's what they told Bob, because we sent it to the ethics department, or he sent it to the ethics department. I just showed him the address. Here, Bob, here's the email address. Send it to the ethics office. And so he did. And he got an email the next day that said they had forwarded his request to the resource department. Except in case of communications by means of posting on the internet site or other technological method by which information is made available for access by the party to whom the communication is being given. Except in the case of communication by means of posting on the internet site or other technological method. Okay, because if you post it on the site, you don't need to have a receipt. It's already there. You send it to somebody's email, well, then they may have to say, hey, we received it. Well, that's what I think it's saying. It's not saying you can't do it. It's saying you can. But if you went to the site and we looked hard enough, we might find something where if you send it, they send you something back that says, hey, it's been received. Well, that's what we're looking for. Receipt of their receipt. So, if to the issuer, master servicer, or guarantor, you'd send it to the General Counsel, Attention Securitization Council, Fannie Mae, 3900 Wisconsin Avenue, Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20016, or to such other address as will be set forth in notification to holders. But B, if to the trustee, and I believe this is who we're interested in, to the attention of the office of the trustee, Fannie Mae, 3900 Wisconsin Avenue, Northwest, Washington, D.C., yada, yada, yada. So that's who you would send it to, right? So we didn't put it to their attention, but I think in the future, this is I put it to the attention of the office of the trustee, because we're the beneficiary. They're going to say we have a beneficial interest in a particular loan, which they created a certificate for that's now being held by a certificate holder that's been somehow transferred into the Federal Reserve System, and we would like the paying agent to pay us. Can they help us out? Recordation. The issuer, hey, that would be Fannie Mae, will have the right in its discretion and its own cost and expense to record any of the trust documents in all appropriate public offices for real property records in any county or comparable jurisdiction in which any mortgage property is situated, and in any other appropriate public recording office or elsewhere. And so since they're under the laws of Washington, D.C., as they said, this shit's probably all in Washington, D.C. Or excuse me, in the District of Columbia, not Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, as a state, not as a city. So the District of Columbia, who's over the District of Columbia? Forget the mayor of Washington, D.C. for a minute. That's a city. They must have like a county board or something that's over the District of Columbia. That's where it's recorded. Their Secretary of State's office. Who's acting as a Secretary of State for District of Columbia? Let's put it that way. And witness therefore, and so forth. Issue supplement to single family master trust agreement. Okay, so this is just okay, the pool number. So basically this is part of the agreement, right? The pool number, what's the thing worth? What's the rate? Issue date, security description, and the QSIP. And so that would be the QSIP for the mortgage-backed security, and then inside of there is a list of all of the mortgage loans that go with it, and each mortgage loan has had a certificate, a numbered certificate issued that relates back to the mortgage loan. And all this is being done through Fannie Mae as the trustee, and everything else is an illusion. They're the trustee of the trust, and you're the beneficiary. So have the trustee do the work instead of us trying to do the work. Let's see how this works during this next week. It'll be quite interesting. I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you found it informative and useful. And please go try it and see what happens. If you're in a foreclosure, if nothing else, you're going to ask for the note. Fine. Tell them you want to see the certificate. Go and download whatever age, of agreement based on the age of your loan that Fannie Mae would have, and read it and say, well, this is what it says. Well, so who has the frickin' certificate? Because it's going to say that that Fannie Mae has your loan and they've issued a certificate that has the beneficial interest, and they're the ones that the certificate holder is the only one that could foreclose on you. Certificate holder / beneficial owner. We're just going to say we're the beneficial owner. Go ahead and pay us and cancel out the trust. Amen. Hope it works. praying for it. We'll see ya.